Have you ever wondered if you're an extremist? Well, thankfully, the FBI is on top of it. And that is one thing we will be talking about in this episode of the Range Minded Podcast. Hello and welcome back, fellow extremists. Isn't that such a harsh term, extremist? Well, luckily we have the federal government to help us understand if you and me and others like us are extremists. You might need some duct tape and maybe some zip ties and some other things to keep your brain in your skull as your head explodes from how frustrating some of this news is. I guess we might as well just jump into it and kind of rip the Band-Aid off, shall we? Recently, the FBI in those super sleuths, the gumshoes and whatnots, the FBI have decided to bring out symbols of, what do they call it? Symbols of domestic terrorism. It's a guide that came out. Thankful to the 2A cops, a couple guys from Boise that I watch some of their stuff. They do some videos on YouTube and they have a podcast. This is what brought it up to light. By the way, I really found this out from their Substack, which the Range Minded Podcast, we just started a Substack. So we have a couple articles out there, completely side note. It's a squirrel moment. That's the way it is. But it was from the 2A Cops podcast, or excuse me, Substack, that this came to light. And I swear we talked about this or had this issue come up last year, maybe about this time or so, that the ATF, we're going to be talking about the ATF a little bit later, that the FBI brought some stuff up saying that these symbols are domestic extremists, or domestic terrorists or whatever. But they've pushed the envelope even farther, okay? And just so my personal agent, because I'm sure at some point or other we've got to have some listeners that belong to the bureau. What do you call them? Company man? That's the CIA, right? Well, anyway, I'm sure we have a dedicated agent that gets to listen to the show, and hopefully bit by bit we're converting them from their extremism to actual normal Americans. We'll see. Anyway, this is a 2-page document. I will be linking this in the show notes because I think it's important for you to understand and to listen. Also, another squirrel moment for just a second. You're going to notice that I'm going to be talking kind of nasally. You hear that right there? My allergies have not been bad at all until the last week or so, and they have hit me with a vengeance. And I refuse to take allergy meds because they make me ridiculously tired, like dangerously tired. If I was to take a pill in the morning and then drive to work, like, it makes me nervous that I would cause an accident. That's how tired they make me, so I just suffer through it. And in tonight's show, you too get to suffer through it with me. Anyway, so there's just a 2-page document that I'm going to be linking in the show notes. One of them just talks about like definitions of domestic terrorism, militia violent extremism. MVE is what they're calling it. And then there's also another document that shows the symbols of MVE. So let's first read this threat overview. Okay, I'm not going to read this whole document because it's just too much to talk about. We'll just hit highlights in it, and that way you can go study it on your own time. All right, so this is from the document. This is the reference guide. Militia Violent Extremists are an anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremists who seek to use this is going to be a tough read for me. Extremists who seek to use or threaten force of violence to further their ideology in response to perceived abuse of power by the government, perceived bureaucratic incompetence, I'm not going to say anything there, or perceived government overreach, especially in regard to suspected infringements on gun and land rights and excessive use of force by law enforcement. I just got to keep my mouth shut, right? They fear the government is unwilling or unable to protect the United States from perceived threats from undocumented immigrants, drug traffickers, Muslims, and certain social or political activists, and believe their actions are justified, given their self-appointed role as protectors of the U.S. Constitution, a responsibility they perceive as consistent with the well-armed citizenry sanctioned by the Second Amendment. They hold a deep belief in conspiracy theories regarding the suspension of civil liberties, the internment of Americans, foreign invasions and occupation, and the end of a constitutional government. All right. Man, that's a lot to unpack. Let me just put it this way. With what we've gone through in the last, even when Trump was president, just answer these questions, yes or no, to yourself, and maybe this will diagnose if you're an extremist. Has the government been overreaching with some of their power? Is there perceived incompetence in law enforcement, especially at the federal level? Is there infringement upon civil liberties? Anyway, again, that's up for you to decide. So let's talk about some of the symbols that they're saying are indicators of MVEs. And I cannot believe the very first one they talk about, I cannot believe they're taking this seriously. And maybe I'm just naive, which it could obviously be the case too. Okay? The very first symbol or icon or whatever you want to call it is a boogaloo. Are you kidding me? Like, the Boogaloo Boys were started as a joke and just kind of took off from there. This is how you can identify a boogaloo. Okay, alludes to the film Breakin' 2. I've never even heard of that. Electric Boogaloo. Use some MVEs to refer to violent uprising or impending second civil war. I've never talked to anybody that wants a civil war. Common imagery incorporates the igloo and or Hawaiian shirts or flowers. This has to be a joke. Like, the geek at the FBI had to have just thrown this in here as a joke, right? Because I love my Hawaiian shirts, but not once have I called for a civil war, nor would I, because I think that would not be good for our country. Again, it was my understanding that the old Boogaloo Boys, wasn't that like basically a meme from like Black Rifle or something? Like, wasn't it just a joke? Anyway, anarcho-capitalism, ANCAP, which, anarcho-capitalism, an ideology held by some NVEs advocating the state to be eliminated or minimized and that the public services be provided by private companies competing in a free market. Boy, we can't have a free market, can we? Represented by the black and yellow flag. I've never seen this. It's basically a rectangle, flag-shaped rectangle, cut from corner to corner, one triangle yellow, one triangle black. I've never seen that. Again, I might be naive. The Punisher skull. Oh my goodness. Chris Kyle would be totally an extremist. Several variations of the skull used by 3%ers and Molon Labe. Or Labe or whatever. If you see a Punisher skull, not only is the guy an asshole, he's probably an extremist. Whatever. Warrior culture. So there's a picture of Spartan helmets on here. Military themes, both historical and contemporary. So you're telling me, FBI briefing, you're telling me that if you see a Spartan helmet on anything, that's considered warrior culture, which I don't know why that's being downgraded. We need warriors in the world. And because somebody has a Spartan sticker on something, what if they ran a Spartan race? That's part of warrior culture, isn't it? Well, that's an indicator of possible MVE. They also say in parentheses Spartans, which we just talked about, or Valhalla, which the two indications here, they only have Spartan helmets, which maybe they don't understand that Valhalla has nothing to do with the Spartans. But now our Norse culture is getting attacked too, because we cannot have strong men in society, apparently. And here's one that should make your head explode. 2A. MVEs justify their existence with a Second Amendment due to the mention of a well-regulated militia, as well as the right to bear arms. Holy F-bomb. The Second Amendment is a guaranteed right from the founding of this country, and now that's considered to extreme. Holy smokes. What's wrong with these people? All right, the next icon on here is the Molon Labe. And then the Come and Take It flag from Texas. Again, that part, correct me if I'm wrong. The cannon, the Come and Take It cannon flag, was that not from Texas when they said, if you want our cannons, you can come take them? Am I wrong? But now that's an extremist point of view. Oh my gosh. Something I've never seen this as well. The electrical resistance symbol, which is basically the 3% Roman numeral with like a wave graph going through there. A way to identify as a resistor. Okay. All right, whatever. The black flag. In this case, they're only talking about the American flag that's, black and grayscale. I personally dislike when they change the colors of the flag. Anybody? I think Old Glory should have its intended colors, red, white, and blue. So yeah, when I see the green stripe or the blue stripe or the red stripe, I kind of don't like that, personally. In this case, the black flag is, like I say, all grayscale. The black flag and white... Okay, let's try that again. Black flag. The black and white or all black American flag is used by some to indicate no quarter shall be given. I thought it was just a black and white flag. Apparently, I'm incredibly naive, right? Now, you should know what no quarter means. During a naval battle or whatever, that means we are fighting till the death and we're not taking prisoners, right? Right? Okay. Just making sure we're all on the same page. Again, I am not advocating for war against the government. I do not want a civil war. I think that, if it gets to that point, holy smokes, we're in a lot of trouble. And I mean the country as a whole, not people that support the Second Amendment. All right. Other commonly referenced historical imagery or quotes. The Gadsden flag. Gadsden. I can never say that right. Gadsden flag. There we go. You guys know what that is, right? The rattlesnake, don't tread on me flag. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, too. Apparently, they think it's racist. Has nothing to do with racism. It has everything to do with don't mess with the United States. That's what it has to do with. We'll go through some of the definitions of how this flag came to be. But now the FBI is saying a historical flag that had so much to do with our independence is now considered an extremist symbol. Unbelievable. Because it represents limited government, right? Apparently that's an extremist view. The Liberty Tree. Okay, so Liberty Tree back in Boston. That was where the first act of defiance came from against the British back in Boston, okay? The Liberty Tree. Now, that is a symbol of extremism. It is American... Oh, I almost said something terrible. It's history, damn it. Now the Revolutionary War. The imagery from the war is an extremist symbol. The Minuteman. Oh. Are you kidding me? Also, the Betsy Ross flag is considered extremist. Hello? Is any... Are you guys there? Like, hello? Evil has been calling good and good evil. That should perk some of your ears up. Some of you guys out there that know what that reference is to. American exceptionalism is being demonized, right? For one, this is the greatest country that's ever existed on Earth, ever. But because we need to go into distribution, being equal with the rest of the world, instead of bringing the rest of the world up to American standards, we're going to chop America down to meet the mediocre or less than beneficial standards of the rest of the world. Does that make any sense to you guys? America is the best hope for the world. But the people in control think we need to be back down to the bottom level so everything is fair for everybody. That's not how it should be. We should be bringing everybody up to the same standards that America was founded on. Hello, wake up, people. Anyway, common phrases that could indicate an extremist. This is important, folks, because I think we all say these things. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. That is actually, written in founding documents. So the Constitution is extremist now. I will not comply. Also, apparently that's a scary thing to say. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Again, that's a quote, right? But that's an extremist quote now. I became unreasonable. I've never heard that before. Maybe ungovernable. His name was Duncan Lemp. Wasn't he the one that did he die? I was thinking he died with Lavoy Finicum. I don't know who Duncan Lemp is. A well-regulated militia. Again, phrases straight out of the Bill of Rights. Those are considered extremist. Interesting. Symbols of militia networks. The 3%ers. The Threepers? I've never heard them called Threepers. We already know who the 3%ers are. Good grief. American contingency. Nationwide militia. Scary. The Lightfoot militia. Scary. The Oath Keepers. Wow. I don't think much of the Oath Keepers anyway. I think, I'll keep my mouth shut about that. I think maybe there's a little bit more government involvement with the Oath Keepers than what they're saying. Significant events that extremists may revert to. This one's close to home. Ruby Ridge. Yeah, that happened here in Idaho. If you don't know what happened at Ruby Ridge, learn. If you don't think the government does extreme things, the extremists in that case, that was the government. I just got put on a list for that comment. Waco. Boy, I remember as a kid looking at the Waco things compared to what I see now and learn now. Let's just say my ideas of what happened at Waco are totally different from being a child to now. It's a crazy thing that happened in 1993. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Again, this will be referenced in the show notes. Go ahead and read through it. There's too much to read, too much to deal with. My head is, I got a headache just from dealing with that. As far as I can tell, none of us are extremists, but we're all being labeled as extremists. I find that very disappointing and very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Something needs to take place at the top levels of government. Something has to take place. I am not calling an action of war or violence or anything like that. I mean, somebody has to get in there and clean house. People have to be fired. People have to be demoted. When a government turns on its own people and calls them extremists, that is the gateway to tyranny, my friends. But what do I know? Oh, by the way, I'm a son of a German immigrant who, though he was born at the end of the war, his family suffered greatly at the hands of the Nazis. But what do I know about tyranny? What do I know? Speaking of the Gadsden flag, Gadsden, gosh, why is that so hard to say for this white guy? The Gadsden, oh my gosh. The snake flag. I'm sure by now you've probably heard about young Jaden. I don't know Jaden's last name. Jaden goes to a private school in Colorado, and you probably saw where he got kicked out of class for having a Gadsden flag patch on his backpack. The videos are everywhere. They're viral right now. You've seen the teacher and the mom communicating. Thankfully, the mom, a patriot, a true educator of her own children, a mama bear, if you will, she knew what the Gadsden flag was all about. She's raising her children right. Young Jaden, he's a patriot. That kid is going places. Young Jaden was kicked out of school because the Gadsden the flag, the patch, was very disruptive in class. Yet I'm sure there was BLM and other flags from other groups proudly posted, rainbow colors and all. Yet a yellow flag with a rattlesnake was disruptive. Basically, he was kicked out of class because the teacher or staff of the school or whatever said that it has slavery roots. The tree is rooted, or the flag is rooted in slavery. The flag has absolutely zero to do with slavery. Oh. Just so you know, by way of information, apparently the rattles has on the snake there has 13 rattles, representing the 13 colonies. What is Wikipedia? One place we love to go for the Gadsden flag, right? Sometimes Wiki has actually good stuff, Wikipedia. The flag is named after Christopher Gadsden, a South Carolina delegate and Continental Congress, to the Continental Congress, a brigadier general in the Continental Army, who designed the flag in 1775. What happened in that time period? Oh yeah, we were kicking the British's ass. During the American Revolution, he gave the flag to Commodore Esek Hopkins, and it was unfurled on the main mast of Hopkins' flagship, USS Alfred. 2 days later, Congress made Hopkins Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Navy. He adopted the Gadsden flag as a banner, his own personal flag, flying it from the main mast of the flagship while he was aboard. The Continental Marines also flew the flag during the early part of the war. Did you read anything about slavery in there? Yeah, me neither. The rattlesnake was a symbol of unity for the 13 colonies at the start of the war. And it has long been a symbol. In fact, Benjamin Franklin, if you guys remember the very first political cartoon, Benjamin Franklin used the rattlesnake cut up into 8 pieces, join or die, right? You guys remember that? Or you damn well better remember that. It's because he knew, all the founding fathers knew, if they didn't stick together, the war would be for naught, and we'd be a British colony. But alas, what happened, right? Obviously, something good happened because we're a free and sovereign freaking country. We kicked out the despots. We were ungovernable. I guess we were domestic extremists. Anyway, back to young Jaden. He's been all over the place. He's been on a bunch of a bunch of different, like, I think Tucker Carlson interviewed him. Charlie Kirk interviewed him. He's all over the place. I think Ben Shapiro interviewed him. Anyway, obviously things went to court. The school realized, oh man, we screwed up, especially when the governor of Colorado said that flag has nothing to do with slavery. Anyway, Jaden and his mom and his attorneys, as they should have, waged war against the school and won. So, Jaden, good job, brother. See what one 12-year-old kid can do? 12-year-old kid. All he had to do was stand up for his rights. Was he educated on him? Yes. I believe his mother did an awesome job raising that kid, and she deserves a bouquet of flowers or something. Good job, Jaden. Is he an extremist because he flies the Gadsden flag? Is he? Nay. I think not.
Make sure you like, review and share. Now back to the Range-Minded Podcast.
Just when you thought that the spiciness was over, it's not. I had to go get some more duct tape. In fact, you know what I forgot to do? As I smack my mic around. It's time for a beverage, because maybe that'll help me calm down. You know, as I'm opening this up, I mentioned Substack. Again, Range-Minded, we started a Substack. We got 2 articles up is all, because I literally just started it. Go check us out under Range-Minded Podcast, actually. If you don't know what Substack is, it's a place where you can read or submit articles on pretty much any topic. Think of long-form Facebook, I guess, or Instagram or whatever. The 2 articles I've written so far, they're just short, 5-minute reads, nothing crazy. Good time. By the way, listen to this. I don't drink regular beer, but ginger beer is just so good. Gotta let my heart rate slow down just a little bit before I jump into this next topic, because it is just as bad. You guys ready? You guys calm down too, because if you're driving, just pay attention to the road. Just chill, because this one might get you going too. So the last little while, we've had some really great rulings coming out of the Supreme Court. We've had some other ones that are kind of not so great. But I think long run, Supreme Court rulings and even like district court rulings or whatever you want to call them, they've been fairly 2A positive. And again, when we say 2A, I guess that makes us extremists. So you're all extremists with me now. The Biden administration. So maybe you remember last year, 2 years ago, was it 21 or 22? The Safer Communities Act. Oh, yes. We can thank a few Republicans for jumping on the bandwagon on that one, which is basically a giant curtain of gun control. Well, here's another facet from that curtain. The Biden administration proposes a new rule aimed at curbing the, quote, gun show loophole. By the way, I write a little bit about the gun show loophole in our Substack. Shameless plug. The Biden administration, this is from CNN, by the way. I'm just going to read through this article. It's not very long. The Biden administration on Thursday proposed a rule intended to require people selling firearms at gun shows and on the internet. By the way, you can't sell a gun on the internet because it has to go through a dealer. Anyway, sorry, a squirrel moment. Gun shows on the internet to conduct background checks on potential buyers in an effort to curb the so-called gun show loophole. The proposal comes with little more than a year after President Joe Biden signed into law the first major gun safety legislation passed in decades, which, among other things, expanded which sellers are required to run background checks before making a sale. Under the new rule unveiled by the Justice Department, thanks again, Justice Department, some private sellers may no longer fall within the background check exemption, with the department saying saying the guidance identifies examples of conduct that would, in certain circumstances, be presumed to qualify as engaging in the business of dealing firearms and thus to require federal firearms licenses, which would mean the seller must run a background check ahead of its sales. Okay, hold on a second. I read through this article before, and this just kind of clicked for me. Are you saying that dealers must run background checks? Yes, of course. That means any dealer, they just kind of pigeonholed their own argument here. FFL holders, by federal law, must run a background check on every disposition of a firearm. Every time they get a gun out of their bound book to the purchaser's hand, a background check has to take place, right? That includes at gun shows. Now, and I think they're talking about this whole internet thing, which if you buy a gun on, I guess I can say Gun Broker, whatever, one of those major online auctions places, it doesn't get shipped to your house. By federal law, the person or company selling that gun has to be shipped to an FFL. It has to be. This is pointless, other than to start recording every transaction of every firearm, even in private sales. Again, back to the story. An increasing number of individuals engaged in the business of selling firearms for the profit have chosen not to register as a federal firearms licensee and required by law. Stephen Dettelbach, our favorite, the director of the BATF, I'm just going to shorten that. Instead, they have sought to make money through an off-book illicit sale of firearms. These activities undermine the law, endanger public safety, create significant burdens in the law enforcement, and are unfair to the many licensed dealers who make considerable efforts to follow the law. By the way, FFL revocations are up 500%. The Justice Department said in a release that the proposed rule also adds a definition of personal firearms collection, exempting from the background check requirement genuine hobbyists and collectors who may want to enhance and liquidate their collections without fear of violating the law. That's going to get closed too, because then there'll be some kind of crazy loophole there. Gun violence prevention group Brady, our friends at Brady, said that in the statement that the proposed rule closes a massive loophole in our life-saving background check system. That's crazy. It seems like most of the shooters, they have bought their guns legally and gone through the background check system. But I digress. That's because they're trying to close all firearm sales. It is past time to ensure that anyone who sells firearm for profit is required to be licensed, and that their sales of firearms are subject to the Brady background check, said Chris Brown from the Brady's president. Our favorite cackling Camilla. Vice President Kamala Harris said, or applauded the proposed rule. She called upon lawmakers to take further steps to reduce gun violence. And she said, quote, Congress must pass legislation to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, requiring safe gun storage and immunity from liability for gun manufacturers, and require background checks on all gun sales, even those by gun dealers who are not registered. Well, then they're not a gun dealer, are they? They're just somebody breaking the law. What do you think about that? By the way, I'm going to be linking the DOJ's document. It's long. I tried reading it. I couldn't. By the time I got to page 2, I was just so furious on everything. It's ridiculous. So why so much consternation on background checks? A lot of you might think, well, what's wrong with a background check? There's nothing inherently wrong with a background check. Here's the deal. We've talked about this before, so I hope you're paying attention this time, because obviously if you had that question, you were not paying attention before. If I have to go to a gun dealer to give my child a firearm, now when I say a child, I don't mean like 6, I mean 21. If I have to go to a dealer, a licensed gun dealer, okay, an FFL holder, and they have to perform a background check on me giving my child a firearm, what does that system do? Well, you're going to say right off the bat, it's checking to make sure that your son hasn't done anything illegal. Okay, fair enough. I think I would know if my child did something illegal. Okay, let's just put that in brackets. But okay, so it's checking to see that he's legal to possess a firearm. Okay, fair enough. What else does that do? Well, if you read my Substack, we talk about that. Another shameless plug. Anytime a dealer acquires a gun, that information has to be stored. Anytime a background check, a 4473, let's start with that first, a form 4473, which has to be done in order to conduct a background check, the FFL holder, the gun dealer, has to retain that information for how long now? Maybe you're going to say 20 years. No, that changed, by the way. Indefinitely. That information has to be held indefinitely, according to recent changes from the ATF. Okay, so what? So there's a paper form somewhere. Nope. There's a digital form somewhere. And if it's digitized, it can be searched even faster. Well, Steve, if you haven't done anything wrong, then there shouldn't be an issue. I haven't done anything wrong. So why is the government presuming that I did something wrong? But I digress again. If there is a paper trail on every serialized firearm that goes in and out of a gun store, whether it's a private transaction or a sale of my collection to the gun dealer, that means they know exactly where everything is. Now, Steve, you're presuming that the government's going to come and take guns? They don't have to come and take the guns. At some point, if they choose to, they know who the last person was that had whatever gun that they're looking for. They can put pressure on 1, 2, 10, 100 people, whatever it may be. And if it's enough pressure, anybody that's paying attention will cave as well. Again, I referenced my dad growing up in Germany. Sounds kind of familiar. But we don't live in a tyranny, do we? We don't live in a tyrannical society, do we? We're not worried about any kind of government agency having way too much power, because that would be an extremist point of view. Are you guys awake yet? Are you guys paying attention to what's going on here? I'm not the only one that's pointing this out, by the way. It's not just a view of Steve or the Range Minded Podcast. By the way, the views and opinions on this show are strictly views and opinions of the Range Minded Podcast. Any of our guests that may have been on or will be on the show may or may not share these views, but what I'm sharing right now is strictly my view on the Range Minded Podcast. It's so stupid that we have to say that. I don't know what to tell you guys. If you're not paying attention to what's going on in the world, I don't know what to tell you. I think we're in for a bumpy ride. Maybe you remember it was one of the first few shows that we ever recorded. I said the Second Amendment will not look the same as we understand it. and Ricky and Mark both. That was back when we had Ricky and Mark. They both kind of scoffed at me like, oh, come on, nothing will ever happen. You go back 4 years and think about what the Second Amendment looked like just 4 years ago. You'll say, oh, it hasn't changed that much. Really? Rare breed triggers, bump stocks, pistol braces. Ghost guns, 80% lowers. Hasn't changed much, huh? And now we're talking about universal background checks. Red flag laws where they take our guns just because they think we might do something. Banning the sale on the most popular firearm in the United States that's responsible for less than 0.02% actually, it's not responsible for anything. It's used in 0.2% of gun deaths. Hello. All right. I got to drink a drink because I got to relax. I'm pretty sure I have high blood pressure, and this just makes it worse. By the way, why does a duck have feathers? You're going to want to write this down. Why does a duck have feathers? To hide its butt quack. I had to lighten the mood somehow. Friends, hunting season's coming up. I wasn't planning on talking about this because my brain could only handle as far as the Biden administration. But I got to get out of that rut because I don't want to be negative at the end of the show. Hunting season is coming up. I know here in Idaho, I think archery starts this beginning of September, I think. I don't know. I don't hunt, so I need to get somebody on the show that does hunt, right? You probably do want to hear somebody that's got some good hunting stories. What do you guys got everything you need? I remember working the ranges this time of year. It's ridiculous how many people come in and sight in their rifles. You guys got your gear ready? Did you buy a new hunting rifle? Are you looking for some new scopes? Maybe we should answer some of these questions, huh? Maybe we should. Is the 6.5 Creedmoor sufficient for killing an elk? Can you hunt with a 10mm handgun? Who cares? Just buy one anyways. It's just fun to have. Hunting season's coming. Do you have all your stuff ready? Are you taking your kids with you? When you go, is it just like like kind of a stereotypical hunting camp where nobody really hunts, they just go and drink? I've never hunted before. So these are honest questions, right? Do you like hiking way back in there to hunt? I got a good buddy of mine that hunts all the time. He's going to Colorado and he's hunting at some ridiculous 12 or 14,000 feet above sea level. I'm like, dude, Joe, you're crazy. Because I think he said their camp is at 10 or 12,000 feet, and then they're horsebacking up to 14. Oh my gosh, why? I talked him into buying some canned oxygen so he can survive without getting hypoxia. Is that what it's called? 14,000 feet, for the love of Pete. Why would you be going up that high? He's excited, so I'm excited for him. Do you guys really think it's that advantageous to go that high up? I understand you want to go somewhere where there's less people, so there's less risk of somebody taking your animal. Maybe there's more animals go up that high. I don't know. Like I said, I've never hunted, so. And you know what's funny? I have really good friends of mine that know I've been deeply involved in the 2A community. They know my love and affinity for firearms. They understand my knowledge base with firearms. And when I tell them I don't hunt, I remember one of my buddies looked at me like I had something growing out of my forehead. So you don't hunt? I'm like, no. But you like guns. Yeah. And you don't hunt? No. I don't think it's that much of an anomaly. To me, I can enjoy firearms. I can enjoy target shooting. I can enjoy taking guns that are capable of hunting to the range or out in the desert and just shoot at targets. Pardon me. Terrible radio. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys like to hunt? Or do you think it's a waste of time? That's kind of the other half of my argument is like, I know some of the purpose of hunting is like the experience of getting out there and hunting in the wilderness. I get it. But because I grew up broke, I think about how much it costs to go hunting. And if you put like a price per pound on, let's just use my buddy Joe's reference. Like, again, they're driving to Colorado. They're getting on horseback. He had to get all his gear ready. They're going to spend a ton of time way up high, so he has to buy different gear to be up that high. Then if he shoots something, he has to get it back, plus the fuel to get there. If you put a price per pound, is the meat that good? Whereas I got a brother-in-law that raises Wagyu beef. I can go buy a cow from him and have it butchered and have like prime meat. And I'm guessing it's probably going to be cheaper. And I know where it came from, just like you guys know where your hunt comes from. Anyway, it is what it is. I get it. It's really about the experience of getting out there in God's country. He's going to have some awesome stories. In fact, I think I talked about his experience just going outside of Yellowstone. They went and horseback in to go shed hunting, looking for antlers, and they found a baby wolf. And like, just the experience of seeing like I've never seen a wolf, big or small, live or dead, in the wilderness. And they happened to come across this little baby wolf pup running through the brush. And he got a bunch of pictures of it. It's pretty cool. It was actually outside of the park. It wasn't in the park, but they had to park in the park to get. It's a long story. It was not in Yellowstone Park. So if you're one of those crybaby wolf people, they were not in the park. He wasn't like chasing down wild animals like those stupid tourists do to get a picture. It was outside of the park. They happened to be walking through the brush, and then there was this little wolf pup. They weren't stupid with it. They respected the animal. They didn't feed it beef jerky or nothing like that. So just relax. But experiences like that I understand. Like, people go for experiences like that. I get it. And maybe it's because I'm not really super outdoorsy anymore that I get confused about it. And honestly, that's probably one of the bigger reasons why I don't hunt, is because my personality is like, if I do something and I start to like it, then I start spending a lot of money on things to support that habit. So I know if I really like hunting, then I'm going to start, I'll have to buy a Mystery Ranch backpack, and then I'll have to buy some super expensive camo, and then I'll have to get a nice lightweight tent, and then it'll just be a downward spiral. So I don't hunt because I'm broke. It's not because I don't think, it's ethical or whatever. I think it's actually more ethical than butchering a cow or whatever, even though I just said I could go buy a cow for my brother-in-law. Whatever. Don't judge me. So I'm curious. I want you guys to tell me about what's your plan for hunting season. Are you going to go hunting? Is there, you don't have to tell me where it is exactly, because I know some people like really guard their hunting spots. But like, is there a place that you guys have gone for generations? Is there a specific camo? Is there a specific caliber that you think is better to hunt with than the other? What are there some little tricks and secrets that you have for hunting? I'm really curious about it. I think we could make a show out of it, but if I'm going to have a guest come on, I really need to know some good solid questions because I don't hunt. I just don't know about it. So this is what I want you to do in the comment section of this episode. I want you guys to talk about maybe some of your hunting memories or places or things that you do, or maybe little traditions or something like that. And then I'm going to bring on a guest about hunting, but I need your help to get to that point. Okay? So go ahead and put some in the comments. If it's a longer story or if you want to have some pictures, go ahead and email them to me. Okay? rangeminded at gmail.com. If you want to get those, we can talk about them in a Substack. Again, like I said, just started a Substack. I can put pictures on there. We can blur faces out. We don't have to talk about where it's at or whatever you want to do. We can share that information because I'm genuinely curious. You can find us on social medias, right? We got Instagram, we got Facebook. People are trying to talk me into TikTok. I just can't do it yet. I don't know if I want a TikTok, but anyway, Instagram, Facebook, and X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We're on there as well. All Range Minded Podcasts, okay? You can find us on all those social platforms. Comment, like, share. Let's have a community. I want to have a conversation about hunting. Maybe I need to change my mind and go hunting. Who knows? Anyways, look forward for hearing from you guys. A couple things I really want you to do. Oh, by the way, back to the head exploding moment. The DOJ on this whole change with private sales or whatever, the comment period started now. Okay, so we're at the end of August, right? August 31st is when I'm recording this episode. I think it's open for 120 days. I could be wrong. If you have an opinion, good or bad or indifferent, on what the ATF is trying to do with this new rule about private sales and needing an FFL or whatever, okay, universal background check is really ultimately what it is. Comment on it. Tell them your opinion. Don't just copy and paste stuff, because I think they just look at the copy and paste things you can get on, all over the internet. I don't think they really have an impact. I think they do like aggregate everything together and say, well, look, these 455,000 emails are for or against or whatever. It's important to utilize that comment period. I'll see if I'll find the comment period link and I will put that in the show notes as well. Okay. Deep breath. I appreciate you guys. In fact, I love you guys. I'm so grateful that you're willing to take time to hang out here in the podcast. I love doing this podcast. I love doing this show. I'm going to end with this. There may or may not be some things changing in my life. I don't know yet. They may or may not impact the podcast. I just don't have the answers yet. I'm not running for office. It's nothing like that. But I don't want to talk about it right now. I just want to make you guys aware, since we're friends and family. I want you guys to know that things may or may not change. I'm hoping to keep the podcast going. I don't see, honestly, why not. It's just my life might be a little bit more stressful here for a few weeks. If you're the praying type and you're willing to say a prayer for me and my family, that'd be awesome. I'd appreciate it. Again, I'm just going to kind of keep this close to the lapel. I'm not going to really talk about what it is, what it involves. It's not really scary or sad or life-threatening, anything like that. But it could have a huge impact on my family. And I would appreciate if you're the praying type, I want you to throw a prayer to the big guy upstairs for us. That'd be awesome. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Take somebody shooting. If we want to propagate the Second Amendment and prolong our freedoms as long as possible, hopefully indefinitely, if we want to raise the next generation of 2A advocates, we got to take people shooting. We got to share our love for this country. It's important. Love you guys. Peace out. Happy hunting, whatever it may be. See ya. Thanks for spending your time tonight listening to the Range Minded Podcast. Your input is valuable to us. If you liked what you heard in tonight's show, go ahead and like, share, and review on whatever platform you're listening to. If you want to get hold of us, you can email me at rangeminded@gmail.com, or you can find us on our social medias. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under the Range Minded Podcast. I appreciate your feedback. We love you guys, and remember to take somebody shooting.